Hello and welcome. French director, screenwriter and producer Jean-Jacques Annaud started his career with a bang in more ways than one. His first film, the World War I drama Black and White in Colour, won the Oscar for Best Foreign Film in 1997. It signalled the start of the career of a fearless filmmaker prepared to tackle difficult subjects, often set and shot in challenging locations. He went on to direct The Name of the Rose with Sean Connery and 7 Years in Tibet with Brad Pitt. Now 78, Jean-Jacques is still writing and directing movies. But in 1981 he undertook the challenge of directing Quest for Fire, an epic story of prehistoric survival set 80,000 years ago as a tribe of humans desperately seek a source for fire after being attacked by another tribe and wolves. The film starred Ron Perlman, Everett McGill and Ray Dawn Chong, and was shot in some of the harshest, most rugged terrains on the planet. It went on to win the Oscar for Best Makeup. I chatted with Jean-Jacques at the Cannes Film Festival as he was nearing the completion of the film, and he told me about some of the difficulties they faced making the movie. But firstly, a brief apology for the quality of the sound, which unfortunately we haven't been able to fix.
What kind of reaction did you get in Hollywood when you went in and you said to them that you wanted to make a film about primeval man 8 years ago?
Well, they thought I was crazy, and they loved it. You know, they loved the French movie maker coming with to do the picture, but to meet me. The situation. They say, "Ha going to make a movie with what language?" And I said, "Of course." And they said, "What? A movie with no language?" And I said, "For 30 years you've been doing terrific picture with no language." And they said, "But this is impossible." And I had each time to say, "But look, the best parts of the picture you've been producing are the one with only music and visual. That's the most efficient. When you have to carry a feeling, this is what you use. You use a piece of music and a man and a woman, and they look at each other, and you understand they're in love. Do you really need to have these lines, 'I love you'?" And I said, "Oh yeah, maybe, but how can you make a picture with that?" And I said, "Well, look, we have been thinking of writing scenes of action. Then action is clear for everyone, and then we look at the reaction of people. Then we even know what they think about the action." And I was giving little examples such as, an accident, there is a mother, there is a child was wounded. Do you have to see, to hear that the mother says, "Oh my God, I'm so sad, my child is wounded"? No, you see, it's an accident, and the mother is desperate, and she's crying because a child is wounded. Then we've been constructing the picture this way, but it was a very funny reaction, I must say.
So did they just very easily then give you $12 million and say, "Go away and make the film"?
No. That only happens in comic books. No, it has been very, very difficult, although it was such a strange thing for Los Angeles that I was prepared for more fights. And what's difficult in Los Angeles is that at the major companies, the presidents are changing all the time. Then you're dealing with a man, and he says, I understand what you want to do. And that means for you, 2 months of work to convince the man. And then suddenly the man resigns or is fired. And you have a new president, and you start again. Then I had to start 4 times in the same company, and another time in a previous company. Then that is 5 times, plus we were hit by the strike, and I had to start again with new producers who knew nothing about the project. And I had to explain again.
How far had you developed it then? Did they know, for instance, where you were going to shoot it? Did you know where you were going to shoot it?
Well, in fact, I wanted to shoot in Australia. But at that time, when I started, I wrote it very openly. It could happen anywhere. I just wanted very barren and very primitive landscapes. And I was even considering of shooting some parts in France. And I did some precise location, and it didn't work at all. I must say we have a very tame country, and it doesn't work.
So where, in fact, have you shot the film?
I shot in Scotland, in Canada, and in Kenya. In 2 different places in Kenya, in Tsavo Park and in the Rift in Magadi, and in Canada in 4 different parts in British Columbia, in Vancouver Island, in Alberta, and in Ontario. We traveled a lot.
So what is the story about? Because it is in fact about people, although it's 30,000 years ago.
Well, it's people, it's human beings, and they've got they went through a lot of dramas, and it's a very, very human film, more human than many contemporary films. The basic drama is about a tribe that lost their fire, and they have to send their best men to pick the fire to survive. The story is during the Ice Age, and during the Ice Age, no fire means no life. You have to have fire to survive, and at that period, men did not control. They didn't know how to make fire. They knew how to keep fire alive, but they couldn't create the fire. Then if you lose your fire, you're dead. And as you see, it's a very, it deals with the very basics of human nature. It's a quest for survival. And through that adventure, we follow four characters, and they go through lots of internal dramas.
Now, you mentioned language before, and in fact you've gone to great detail to create a language, and also to make sure that the way they move and their actions and everything, which were primeval, of course, are as accurate as possible. How did you do it?
Well, I must say one thing. It's the language that we use, that we created, is to avoid the grunts. Because when you say, I'm doing a picture about that period, people think of grunting, and it's not that at all. That is a very silly, ridiculous image about that period. It's like 10 years ago doing a science fiction picture was madness. And we are doing a science fiction picture in the past. And as we know that at that period, people had already a vocabulary restricted, but they were not grunting. Chimps are not grunting, they've got already a language, but we know that at that period they had an articulated language. Then we worked with Anthony Burgess, who is the man who wrote the vocabulary for Clockwork Orange, and also was the first person to do a vocabulary dictionary of Indo-European roots. You know that Indo-European was the common language 6,000 years ago of all the major language of today. And we know for sure what was this language spoken 6,000 years ago. Then what we did, we just count a few more years and guessed what was the language that those ancestors of the Indo-European, and we could guess through the roots, which have not changed. In so many years, they're still the same. We still use the same vocals to design this, to represent the same concept, which is quite amazing. And also, we know from the skulls that the shape of the palate allows only a certain range of sounds. Then we created a vocabulary to be pronounced by those people, and being of our languages. And for the gestures, he developed body language with Desmond Morris, who is the man who wrote Naked Apes, and a very fascinating book called Man Watching, which is all the little...
Picking a nose.
Yeah, exactly. The Desmond Morris what I feel today. By the way, he's always to hide his bald head. Anyway.
Shall we just move on very quickly to another part of the film which is quite extraordinary? It's the visual part, and it's the creation of the animals that were alive on the earth at that time. How did you go about that, and what kind of animals do we see?
Well, at that time, as it's in fact a very recent period, the animals were not that different. They were mammoths, or they were saber-toothed tigers. It means that they were animals of today with long hair or long teeth. That is typically the period of the reindeer. The experts know that. They call it the period of a reindeer, because most of the tools were made with antlers of reindeers. Then the animals we encounter in this film are, as I said, mammoths, saber-toothed tigers, cave bears, wolves, which were really the enemies of man at that time, or the enemy, or the beefsteak also, it was food. And we've been creating mammoths. We spent lots of time to convince elephants to work for us. And,
how did you do it? How did you convert them into mammoths?
Well, we had to train them to wear different pieces. They had 4 different pieces, plus huge parts where the hair were directly applied on the tusk, on the trunk, and on the legs. It was a huge makeup job. It was something like 12 hours per animal, and we had to put them a longer tusk and hairs, and the most difficult part was to train them. They've been trained for 6 months, and the saber-toothed tigers also was a big guess, a big gamble, because we had to find very, very big lions, because in fact saber-toothed tigers looked like lions, and we had to use castrated lions. And then we took the cast of saber-tooth of the period in the museums, and we put those teeth on a real lion. And they've been trained for 6 months to even eat with those teeth. They were enormous teeth. And they were quite happy. They were very proud.
With the shooting in so many places and using things like those animals, were there ever any accidents or...
Well, very, very few, in fact. Well, I say very few, none. We had one cameraman who had a broken ankle because he was playing football.
Working with the elephants, did you have any problems with them at all?
Yeah, we had lots of problems, because the first day my trainer said it's very easy with elephants, they're very nice animals. Just put an elephant near the camera and the others will come. And in fact, they didn't come to the other elephant, they come to a little tent where all the equipment was gathered, and they trampled on, I don't know how many thousands of dollars of equipment, of Panavision equipment. That was my first day. The second day, they said, take the tent down, because it's dangerous. You saw the elephant, they think it was their tent. Then take this tent down and put the elephant near the camera. But the elephants are very wise. They saw their tent on the other side of the hill. And when they got free, they decided to go to their tent. Well, they didn't know, because they're not that intelligent, that we had horrid marshes in between. And 8 of them were trapped up to the neck, like the pictures of the elephant trapped in the Siberian marshes. And we had some of them with only the trunk to breathe. It was horrid. And the trainers and we were all afraid. We had to pull them with ropes, and we were all pushing those poor animals.
And of course, the more they struggle, the harder.
Yeah. Plus they were all hairy. Then it was soaking wet and muddy and horrible, and all the costumes were ruined, and we had to cancel the days of shooting. And I'm doing some pickups seen in California because of those trouble. No, that was very difficult. They broke their task, and that was several horrid days, I must say.
Now, in unfolding the drama of these people, you've obviously had to deal with elements of sex and relationships. How have you tackled that, and how explicitly?
Well, yes, of course. It's one of the basics of not only man but animals. And what we see in the picture is, in fact, one of the first love story in the history of man. And we started showing a tribe who lives like a tribe of apes. And some very good research has been made on apes, and we know quite well why a male is related to a female. It's a question of dominance, of hierarchy. And we show that in the picture. And suddenly one of our heroes feels something very strange. He's getting weak. Him, the strong, dominant male, is getting weak. And nobody knows what's going on with him. The fact is, he's a little more advanced. And we know that he is falling in love, but he doesn't know. And this is, tenderness is a kind of relationship which is a very advanced thing, which is the intelligence, which is projection of the future, which is investment in the other, which are very, very sophisticated things. And what we are dealing with in this picture, and this is a very important part of the picture, is to show how a man, coming from a very, very primitive way of behaving towards female, becomes a lover, deeply in love and broken by his heart in a very romantic way.
And in fact, there are explicit, I mean, not in the pornographic sense, but there are explicit
Yes.
love-making scenes.
Oh yes, but I wanted to be very free on that. There is even frontal nudity, or because I think the only way not to appear like a sexy, silly picture is to be to deal with that very frankly. To say, well, look, it's simple, and it becomes not as simple when they fall in love. Then it's more erotic. But at the beginning, I don't think it has any. It's like a documentary at the beginning, I must say. When you see a documentary about Africa, well, people are naked. They are white people in this picture. But I mean, they are freely naked and they make love in a very free way. Not the traditional side, but...
Now, the film is going to be released later this year or early next year.
Yes.
But you do have plans, I understand, perhaps to make a film, another film looking at another period of mankind's history, but in Australia.
Well, Australia was my very first wish. As I told you before, I wanted to do this picture in Australia, and because I think there is all the good component in Australia. Then if I could, if I have the chance to be able to do what I wish, it's a trilogy. It's three films about the history of man at different periods, and I wish very much to be able to shoot it in Australia.
Jean-Jacques, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And as I said in the intro, Jean-Jacques is still making movies today at 78. His latest is Notre Dame Brûle, or Notre Dame is Burning, about the circumstances around the fire that almost destroyed Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. His other films have included Enemy at the Gates, Wings of Courage and Day of the Falcon, certainly an outstanding and courageous filmmaker. Again, apologies for the quality of the sound.